welcome. Thank you, Danny. I appreciate you. Thank you for liking as well. Appreciate you liking the live.
Let's
There's a
go.
part of me that just thinks Joe gets violated in his TikTok every time,
Sometimes he does,
and
but he doesn't realise. Makes it
he
even
doesn't
more fun.
realise.
So
Yeah.
if you want to violate Joe, just head over to TikTok, look for Jose Noya Inspiration Nation. It's going to be a long show today. Click subscribe, you can follow, and when he goes live, send him all the abuse. Inspiration Nation, hello. Lee Kemp here for another week on the podcast. My very good friend, Boniface, and my lifelong acquaintance that I feel I'm now stuck with forever, Jose Noya. How are we doing, guys?
Yes, you are. All right. How are you doing, Lee?
Good. I'm good. I'm going to leave that little start TikTok bit in for the audio podcast as well, just so everyone knows where to go.
Brilliant.
So, I believe it is Mr. Kemp that is up with a topic this week. Just before, for everyone just to know, just before we went on, we have a little preamble. And Jose there was like, oh, whose show is it this week? And we're all a bit like, oh, I don't know. Is it you? And he was like, no, Lee, it's you. It's your show. So why ask the open question if you know the answer?
Well, I had to think it through. I didn't think it through all the way. I was just reacting. My reacting phase.
I like it. I like it. Right. So I have a quote for this week. So we were talking just before we hit record about TV shows we're watching, and I sidestepped my main one I'm watching right now, which is on Apple TV, I will say, for people who haven't seen it. It's called For All Mankind. I would highly recommend it for people. It's a alternate history type thing, and it is like a million times better than Man in a High Castle for people that watch that show, in my humble opinion. Really good. The big event that's different is that Russia lands on the moon first instead of the United States, and that kind of sends history off in a bit of a different direction. There's other things that happen, etc., but it's really well done. Really well done. I could already spend a whole podcast talking about it, but I actually have their own podcast, so I probably won't do that. But within it, there's a quote that one of the characters says, which I absolutely love and really sticks with me. And actually, this quote is, see, in For All Mankind. It's also a modified version of the quote is used in the film Apollo 13. And the quote is part of a book by, hold on, I need to get my phone here so I can read the real guy's name. Gene Kranz. The book, can't remember, that was my thinking noise there, just like that. Failure is not an option. So Gene Kranz was the flight director at NASA during the Apollo 13 mission, so effectively was in charge of the control room when you had the whole Houston, we have a problem thing. And it's a sidebar, but that whole thing about, right, we have to build something, this is all we've got, make it happen. Love that necessity drives innovation. And the opposite of, it can't be done. It's literally, we will make it happen because we have to make it happen. And I love that sort of stuff. And the quote, and it actually relates to that, the quote, the actual quote, not the modified quote, let's work the problem, let's not make things any worse by guessing. And it's the let's work the problem bit. I love that. So there is a fictitious version of Gene Kranz in For All Mankind, and that's mentioned, but then his protege, or maybe not his protege, person who takes over, I can't remember exactly how the characters were, I think it is, she then uses the quote time and time again, and every time they hit a problem and people are differing or throwing out reasons not to do stuff or anything else, she says, we're engineers, this is an engineering problem, let's just work the problem. And I love that mentality. It was said in an episode I had yesterday again, where she just went, let's work the problem. And you could see it in a character, her eyes lit up at just this having a problem to solve and delving into it and having ideas and then frustrations and whatever else, but getting to the point where you've solved that problem. And I just think that mentality can apply to anything in life. Whatever you've got going on, whatever the challenge is, wherever it is, just stop, work the problem. And actually, it's a process. That's a part of life. And like she had, and I think like I'm finding in certain things, actually, that's where the fun is. This thing being a problem isn't something to be doom and gloom and everything else on. It's something to solve. And the process of solving problems is really enjoyable, and embrace it. And, for all these things we talked about, I think I've got it there. But this has really kind of solidified that thinking in my mind of, say, work the problem. Let's get it fixed, because you will. It's almost like once you decide you're going to work the problem, you're already 80% to solving the problem.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah,
What do we
Ryan,
think?
do you want to? Yeah, I better say. Yeah, go on. Right, you got anything on this, Ryan?
No, you go first, mate. I'll have something when you're done.
Oh, okay. Well, I love this, by the way. I love it because it reminds me of a Stoic quote as well. That I think Ryan Holiday talks about, that the obstacle is the way. So it's very similar to that, isn't it? It's
It
like
is very similar to that.
you know, which I absolutely love because I used to really hate problems, but problems actually help you grow, don't they?
Yes.
No, like if I get a problem, it's really the reaction I get is I go, I really hate this, or I hate this. But then actually, when you think about it, what I've said before in a podcast is like, your problems are designed for you. They're there to grow, like you say, to embrace it. Now you know you don't like it. It turns up. You don't like it initially, but actually, when you actually get through it and you do it, it feels great to have solved it. It's just that feeling. Although that's the struggle, right? That's the struggle. But I love it. It's part of life. Life is full of problems you've got to solve. Even my daughter's come down and she wants her headlight changing on her car, and I'm not comfortable with that stuff. You know me, Lee. I don't really like that sort of stuff. And Ryan, I don't like that sort of stuff. Like so but I know I want to help my daughter. So the problem, let's work the problem. So it's like, look it up on YouTube. There must be someone who solved it. That's the first step. So anyway, I had the wrong bulb anyway. For the front.
But you didn't know that until then. So I think it is that,
Yeah,
like you said, you don't know what to do. And the first step is, how do I find it out? And there's something far more positive approaching it with that, right? Let's work this type of mentality.
In fact, I think a lot of my growth has come from leaning into the problems now, because there was also I had a bit of a project on, and I think I remember telling you guys about it, and it's really challenging. It was really super crazy. I don't like to use the word busy, right? Because we're productive, right? I don't like to use that word. So it was a lot on, let's just say, but I was really struggling with managing my time because there was so much going on. It was so stressful. But once I'd sat down with a coach, and like you said, we looked at the problem and then started to work through it, then the solution started to become apparent, which is really interesting, because once you channel your brain energy on something, your brain starts to do something. It starts to work things out, whether it's looking on YouTube, whether it's sitting down and just planning things out. Because you can break the problem down, can't you? Break the problem down into smaller chunks. It's massive. Lee, you did this with the thing we worked on before as well. We talked about before, didn't we? What's the vision? How do you break it down? It's all those things. But what I love about this is that no matter what the problem is, it should be workable. There's a workaround. There's something going on, like the Apollo 13 thing you talked about as well. They had to figure it out with the resources they had, and like you said, it creates innovation and resourcefulness, which is something we all need. But definitely for me now, it's I definitely, although I still get the initial reaction, oh, it's a bit of a problem. You can sit down and go, okay, what's a good first step now? It's more I'm a bit more analytical, so I love it. And when I try and embrace Stoic, I'm like, the obstacle is the way. Let's work the problem. That's part of actually how you get stronger. And that's I use it in my tennis, for instance. I can't beat this person, or I struggle with this person. What would be a good way of figuring it out? And now I'm thinking about tactics. I'm thinking about how I could hit the shot better. So this sort of what you're talking about actually makes you think differently and in a better way, and makes you think in ways you may not have thought before, which is which is a really good thing. It's a healthy thing. And I'm sure if they probably do research on it, they will help you keep disease away, because you're using your brain, right? You're using your brain. So yeah, I love this, Lee. I think it's a massive thing. I think problems come up every day, and I think this is this is what we talk about in this podcast. The everyday challenges, the things we want to get through, and those are things that you solve every day, are the things that are going to make you stronger over the year, over the 10 years, over 20. So if you keep that mindset, then you're just going to grow. So yeah, Lee, I love this. Yeah, that's my thoughts on it. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. I'm loving it.
Something that I think just kind of spending more time with you guys has done for me is that I now approach challenges or predicaments or conflict or whatever it is you want to call it, just in a massively different way. Um, it
You're a
used to
lot
be
less
before.
constructive now than you were before. Is that what you're saying?
I think I would say I'm a lot less destructive than what I was before. I think historically I'd be fuming that something had happened, which meant that there was a problem, um, and then I'd be even more annoyed at the fact that I'd have to fix it because something or someone can't do something or something else right, whatever it is. And that used to really wind me up until I realised that being good at solving problems was actually what people need.
Yes.
Um, and it took me a little while to work that bit out. Um, and it wasn't until COVID, and you might remember this, you might not, but it wasn't until COVID where at our work we, um, we're not secretive about the industry we work in, but we were all office based 5 days a week, and I'm sure Joe, you were somewhat similar. Then all of a sudden, overnight, it was everyone's permanently working from home, and I just remember Lee calling me up one day and going, "You're technologically gifted, help." And we'd been doing the podcast for a couple of years at this point, and he was like, "I've got 50 odd people that can't access their system, and they're saying there's this problem and that problem, and this link they've been given doesn't work." And I remember to this day, I must have been in my leadership role for like 3 weeks. I remember to this day, I got a list of 50 names and 50 numbers, and you were like, solve them. And all I did for about a week was just call people, get them online, and just send the list back and be like, it's done. It's done. And then you would come to me again and be like, oh, this person's now got this problem. And I'd be like, done. And eventually it came to a point where people would stop telling Lee that they had a problem and start telling me they had the problem, and I would solve it without people having to know. And that was when I learned that being able to solve problems and facing them in a different way just increased my value to everyone by tenfold. Um, and even now, like 4 years later, I'm still labeled as the IT guy for people that need help. Uh, um, and yeah, it just talking with you guys and facing problems slightly differently with a different mindset just meant that I could understand how important it was to be able to solve problems, and that changed my entire thought process around it.
Yeah, I
In
think
my
it's so
sorry,
good.
you go, Jay. You go.
Go on. Oh, it's only quickly because I used to have this mindset, before self-development, and all that stuff, that if you solved a problem, then you won't have another problem ever. I don't know why I have this really crazy mindset around, if I solved enough problems, there'll be a day when I won't have any problems. Isn't that a crazy thought? Like, but it doesn't matter what levels you get to, there's always going to be a problem. But it's just
Yeah.
a different sort of problem. It will show up in a different way. But that's a really crazy mindset, isn't it? It's like, but when I was conscious of it, but you're always going to have, there's always going to be problems. And it's like you said, Lee, it's embracing it. So, yeah, I always thought, well, if I solve that, then I've done it. Now we're cool, we're done. But no, there's something else that comes up, and I think there's an acceptance around. There's always going to be problems. It's about how do you approach it, and I love that. And actually, and I said to you before, I think problems are designed for us. I think for our growth, it's there, put in your way because you need that to get to another level in your growth. And that's the way I look at it. It's just like, oh, it's here. Like today, when someone presents something to me, like, oh, I'm too uncomfortable, but actually I have to remind myself that actually this is for my growth. This is why it's here. It's arrived here because I have to try and solve it. That's why I love it. I mean, but yeah, it's not a I wouldn't say it's a natural thing, but like it's a great thing to learn. And Ryan, you're right. Being a problem solver, that's what businesses do. Like businesses solve problems, and the bigger problems you solve, the more money businesses make. The bigger the problem, the more money they make, right? So, problem solving is a big business thing. So the fact that you have that and the go-to guy for problems is fantastic. I think it's excellent.
I wouldn't say I'm the only go-to guy for problems, but I think at that period of time, I was there and I knew half what I needed to know, and that was enough.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all that matters, right? You don't need to know everything. You don't need to be the best at everything. You just are. You just can do it. Whatever it is, you can do it.
You just need to know enough to get started, don't you? And then figure out stuff on the way. That was to me in my time in leadership. people that you could give problems to who would be able to take it away and problem solve and come back to you with something, or come back to you when they hit a brick wall. They're some of the most valuable people. So you're spot on with what you're saying, Ryan. That's what you're looking for, is people you can give that to, people who can grow, people can help take stuff off your plate, rather than having to be involved in absolutely everything that happens, because that just becomes overwhelming.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's so funny, like Ryan, you're like, you're the problem guy for your IT or tech or other stuff now. And it's interesting this week, in my place of work, now there's someone now leads like a coaching culture in their department, and then they reached out to me. They reached out to me with my lead, said, "Oh, can we get together and can we get something?" So, that's the problem is they want a coaching culture, right? How do they start? So, I suppose that's the guy. I was the go-to guy to that, so I love that, and that's in my wheelhouse. So I love that, and that's the sort of problem I love. But I think the other thing as well, this is that we don't always get the problems we want. Like, I always love a coaching problem. I love that. If you come to me about that, it's brilliant. But sometimes we get stuff that isn't, and it's uncomfortable. But that's part of the growth, isn't it? It's doing that. But yeah, I love that, the fact that we've all got this reputation now, that this is building for all of us in this podcast, which I think is fantastic. Which is brilliant, which I think definitely, I agree with you, Ryan, that it's definitely evolved as we've done the podcast. For me, definitely, it's definitely strengthened the identity for me about doing all these things. And yeah, I love it. Yeah, no, thanks, Ryan. Yeah,
and it just, as I say, it just transition. Like, I solved that problem first of all, and that was great. And then somebody came to me and was like, "Oh, maybe you'd be good at solving this, or maybe you could do this." And then before I knew it, I was a go-to guy, quite so people relied on quite a lot to solve problems, and it wasn't just Lee, it was other people that would try their arm and be like, "Could you spare me 5 minutes to do this?" And then you've got to be careful that you're not overselling yourself or over committing to helping other people, and then it becomes a bit of a tough balance to get right.
Yeah, we have to say no sometimes, don't we? Yeah,
there's a bit you said as well, Joe, where you said about, you thought if you solved the problem, you'd have no more problems. But then there's another one. It's just, you can't see the problem. They're not even in your purview, because it's almost like a hierarchy of needs thing, isn't it? You can only see what the next, you can't even comprehend those problems because you've got this. But once it's out the way, your thinking moves to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it just keeps going in layers.
Yeah. And it's funny. I think it was a podcast. I think it might have been this guy on the internet, but he's saying, doesn't matter what level you get to, you could be, you're earning a salary, but, we imagine that people who are like billionaires don't have problems. They have problems. They have different types of problems. It's just a different type. And I love that everybody has problems. It's like no one can escape it. So if you're on this podcast, you can't escape your problems. You've got to solve them. They're there for you to do. That's there for you, right? So that's what I love about it. That no one in the world, you can think of anybody on this planet right now, and they all have problems. That's quite, I don't know, it's quite comforting in a way for me. I think that's quite comforting, because everyone's in the same boat really. We all try and do the same things, maybe in a slightly different way, because the problems are slightly different depending on where we are in our lives. But that's such a I think that's quite a unifying thing though, as human beings. I think that's quite a unifying thing. That we get all these things that are going a little bit of a segue. Was it a segue? No, what's the word? A little bit off track, but you look at Instagram and things like that, and people project these images of perfect lives, and sometimes my children say, "Oh, they've got everything sorted." I can tell you,
they do not.
They have not got everything sorted. I could bet you that is just a snapshot of that second, but beyond that, behind that photo, I can guarantee they're going to be having problems with something.
Yeah.
But that's the funny thing, isn't it? We have this illusion that there will be no problems when we get, but that's not the case. And I had that illusion, but now, accepting that is not the case, and actually for your growth, is a really good thing. Like you said, embracing it. The obstacle is the way, is actually a really good way to live. And actually, what you said at the beginning, was it? Let's work the problem, is a really
I love it. Every time I hear that phrase, it just, I don't know, it's a real positive thing. It gives me a real sense of energy. And I think anytime especially if you're in the middle of something that's all getting a bit much and you're like, right, stop, let's just work the problem. Let's define what the problem is. Let's then work out how we're going to fix it. Let's then put that plan into action. Just calming, that's the word. I find it a really calming statement.
Yeah. Can I link
it refocuses you, right?
Yeah, completely.
I was just going to So I was just going to link this back a little bit to last week about it is what it is, and there was talk about what we can't control, right? And the control is your attitude to that, isn't it? And so you the two ways: it is what it is, and you accept it, or it is what it is, and you try and do something within your power. Very, very. I think there's some sort of link between the two there, because yeah, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's so true, isn't it? Yeah, it just resonates, doesn't it? Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because everybody's going to have problems, for sure. But anyway, yeah, sorry, Lee, you're going to.
That's good. No, that's my some bit. It's a real positive energy statement, and it really sticks to me. And it's literally what we do is quote saying. This is one that's really started to stick in my head the last week as we've been watching this, and I'm already starting to integrate it into my day to day. And I've said before, there's something I'm aiming to get sorted this month. I'm working on a project, have been for a few months, and I'm using my backlog your life thing with it. So I've got a backlog of activities, and actually I went scrolling back through it yesterday, and there's problems that I had 2 months ago, 3 months ago, of things that I was completely clueless, where the activity is actually research blah 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 and then do something with blah blah blah, and they're all ticked off now one by one, and I'm like, God, it's crazy that was something I didn't know that I now know and I've used and I've moved past, and actually that did then create new problems when I got to the next layer of knowledge. And looking back through that list, doing a bit of journaling, if you like, Jose, it's really reassuring. But again, it's that just breaking it down one by one on each one. This is it. I'm just looking at this one. Work the problem. It's done. It's ticked off. The next, and before you know it, you've ticked off 10 things off of this massive list without really trying, because you're just doing one bit by bit and actually enjoying the process as it goes in problem solving or doing what's needed or anything else. It's really good.
Yeah, because sometimes when you're solving a problem, you actually solve a couple of problems in a go, because it just naturally leads that. And so when you go back and check the list, is what I've got from you is that, we've done that. I've noticed that as well, that if you solve that problem, you maybe solved another problem in the process because you had to solve it to get to that problem. You actually don't realise you've done it until you go back and actually track and go, oh, I did actually do that. But it didn't actually feel like anything because actually it was something I had to do to get past to this bit. I mean, which I think is fascinating. There's a path, isn't there?
Sometimes you can also create 2 new problems when you're solving those 2 problems, but you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. I absolutely love this because, it's so true. And I think there's a lovely thing about sometimes you just go with it, and almost like there's a lovely little saying called silence does the heavy lifting. And so I think you could sort of adapt that to this. You're solving a problem quietly away, and actually you're solving other problems that you don't realise you're solving by doing that problem, which I think is absolutely crazy. When I think consciously of that's just bonkers good because, I love that. And if we naturally let go and go with it and just don't resist and actually just jump into it and have a go, then you're gonna find you're gonna make extraordinary, like you said, Lee. You said over the last year you've had extraordinary gains by doing this.
Is it.
I myself, doing this coaching culture stuff that I'm doing, there's been extraordinary gains that I wouldn't have expected. In my work, outside work, the podcast, right, with Joe the other week. Up there, you can see there. There's no such word as can't, right? Up there at the top there, you can see it. But all these things just lend into these things that we do, and I think I think we talked about getting guests on the podcast. Well, they naturally seem to come along when unexpectedly, and they will. And I'm on the lookout for guests, and it's I just love this whole concept of it, Lee. I think it's problems are the way. That's the way. The obstacle's the way. Let's work the problem. I mean, I love the way that you think and you found it inspiring, because I think that is part of this podcast, right? Because we need to find
That's it. That's exactly what it is.
Inspiring, right? So when I hear it, it's, I know, right? It's hard, but actually, I know this is going to be good for me in the long run, right? And I'm going to feel good when I do it. Yeah, I love it. And sometimes we don't. Actually, sometimes we fail and fall off, but actually we learn a lot by doing that. So everyone here listens to this stuff because this is great, and it's just about facing them head on. Love that, Lee. I've just loved this episode. I'm loving all these episodes.
Good stuff. So what are our takeaways for this week then? Look, you didn't even have to prompt me there, Jose. I remembered myself.
He's learning.
It's only taken like 5 years, but I'm there now. Right, Ryan, what have you got?
My takeaway this week would be to not see a problem as a problem. See it as an opportunity.
Yeah, love that.
It's a nice little double entendre there.
Yeah, love that.
Jose, what have you got?
I saw his big pause, so I thought you were waiting for me. I'm going to say lean into it. Just lean into the difficulty. Just lean into it. Yeah, as Lee said, let's work the problem and lean into it. Like you said, step back and just have to go. Just start.
I am going to say, both in a profound way and a lazy way, work the problem.
Yeah,
that's it.
Nice.
That's the takeaway. See, look at that. You're like, oh, it was profound and lazy. If you out there enjoy our profound laziness, check us out on Twitter or X at Listen to IN. Listen TOIN. Stick Jose Noya Inspiration into your Google machine. He's everywhere on every platform. Give him a follow. Most importantly, YouTube and TikTok. If you subscribe on those, you'll get notified when you go live each and every week, and you can join in with the show. Joe will wave manically at you off camera, just like he is doing now. And head over to inspirationation.org.uk, shop, back catalogue. Lots of great stuff going on over there as well. And Joe's pointing at something. I don't know what he's pointing at. What are you pointing at, Joe?
T-shirt. Can we see it?
Oh yeah, that's it. There's t-shirts at inspirationation.org.uk.
Trying to help you.
And mugs. I've got mine here. Look, hold on. I'm keeping my keys in it, so I need to take them out.
Just doing the merch thing. It's great.
Mug shot for the camera that gets obscured by my background, but it's a great looking mug. You just can't see it.
I don't.
It's the same
I don't
colour
know where
as the
mine's
background.
gone.
Oh, do I need to order you a new one?
No, I haven't gotten rid of it. I know it exists.
I'll send you one in the post. Right.
It's another worldly plane.
On that note, I'll count us down. We'll be back next week. Thank you, everyone there. Appreciate you all. If you do like what you hear, and tell friends, tell family, leave us a review. That's what helps us grow. 3, 2, 1. Inspiration Nation.
Inspiration Nation. Catch you guys later.
Catch you guys later.